What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Hoops Betting Hour. I am your host, the big man on campus. We are here live on a Tuesday, June 8th, 2021, breaking down the NBA playoffs, having some fun here on a Tuesday. As always, we are here every day breaking down the NBA, hanging out, giving out picks, talking about totals, sides, props, whatever. Let's bring in our guest today, our Tuesday guest. It's the great Martin Weiss. You can find Martin Weiss doing his thing. He's a mover and shaker at Fox Sports. He's got the Lemon Pepper Parlay podcast. He's got all sorts of stuff. He is a person that offers compelling sports betting. He's found his niche. He's found his niche with the right people, and he joins us today. Martin, what's happening? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I tell you what, I may have found the niche, but my last two kind of picks have been terrible. I mean, how many times have you seen 30-point blowouts in the playoffs?
Listen, I've been on the Bucks both games, and I've had a good playoffs. But I guess I've just overrated the Bucks and what they are capable of. But I'm telling you, last night I was very surprised. What a piss poor effort that was. Sharp money was on our side. You had no Harden. They were down 1-0. Just a disgusting performance. Mike Budenholzer, look, they're not going to win this series. Mike Budenholzer will be unemployed in a week or so. You can't, the front office, you can't, you got to get some new blood in there. And it's kind of worked out kind of like Terry Stotts, where you have nothing to show for Giannis Antetokounmpo and for the other players that you have there. Really disheartening if you're a Buck fan.
I gave out Bucks last night for my Weiss advice, and somebody tweeted me like I'm 2 minutes into the first quarter. It's like, oh, every time I start to gamble and feel nervous about gambling, I see the public's on the wrong side, and I was like, I feel like the public is going to be betting on Brooklyn here. Like, isn't the whole world betting on the Nets?
Yeah. The public was on Brooklyn last night for sure. And look, I think there's a case to make that there were certain people that probably saw Harden was out and said, well, I guess I'll take the Bucks. They're down 1-0, which I think those are smarter people. The public are people that just bet games because they like Harden or Durant or Kyrie or whatever.
Exactly.
Or they're a fan of the team. Brooklyn definitely has a market share because of who they have on their team. But yeah, it was disheartening for sure. However, I was very happy with the second game last night. I had Phoenix. I was very happy with the performance. Very good second half. Very good. Really kind of went how I thought the game would go. I kind of felt like the Suns would do what they do in the second half and kind of pull away. You look at the second half, 65 points in the second half, very solid effort. We're really good in the third quarter. I thought defensively they made some major adjustments. And look, that's what you get from this young crop of coaches, whether it's Tyronn Lue or Monty Williams. Monty Williams is another good coach in the NBA. He's a real good young coach, and he's a guy that made adjustments. He didn't allow certain people to beat him, and they were able to pull away. He is a really rising star in this league, and I think he's going to push the Suns maybe to a Western Conference Finals and maybe to a Finals appearance. That's how good I think this team is. But, yeah, I think really last night was what you get, I think, with a good coach and what you get with a bad coach. Mike Budenholzer made really no adjustment. He did nothing to really change any outcome. It's put, the prospective teams in different situations. But really nice effort from the Suns last night. I was happy with the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I think the Suns have a chance. Like, my future bets have been absolutely horrible. I've been having terrible reads, but I think the Suns have a shot to win the West. Like, I think they have. I think it comes down to like between them and whoever comes out of Utah, and I mean obviously whoever comes out of Utah and the Clippers. But I think with Chris Paul playing the way he's playing right now, that shoulder. Remember like 2 weeks ago when Chris Paul's shoulder was hanging from the ground, he couldn't he couldn't dribble the ball, anything like that.
We had people in here talking about how they'd lose to the Lakers. Yeah, I remember.
I mean, Chris Paul looks just A-okay, and I mean that Devin Booker is otherworldly, dude. In the playoffs, it's about dudes who can get buckets. I don't disagree with Marcus right here. Nets versus Suns 2021, where I sit right now, June 6th, I feel like Nets versus Suns is going to be our finals.
Well, you have a Hall of Famer at point guard. who's a
Yep.
bulldog defender. You've got one of the best scorers in the NBA at your 2. You have a 5 in Ayton that is really turning into a very good basketball player. I mean, he has turned into quite a good big. Double-double last night. I thought he did a pretty nice job at staying in the game, played 36 minutes, which against Jokic is not ideal. I mean, when if you can get a player on the opposite team against Jokic to play more than 35 minutes, that's not good for the Nuggets. Because if you watch that Portland series, Nurkic couldn't stay in the game. If Ayton's in the game, he is going to put up good numbers. He did good things against the Nuggets really all year, this year and last year, and he was able to do some really good things for them. You also look at the fact that Bridges has turned into a really good pro that can shoot the rock. He can give you 20, and he can defend his ass off. And we all know what Jay Crowder can do. You have a good bench. I don't see a lot of flaws with this team. I really don't. I think defensively they're very good. I'm very happy with this group. I think they have definitely what it takes to get to the finals, and I think Marcus is right as well. I think we see Nets Suns as I would be very happy as I have the Suns future as well. So yeah, very happy with the Suns. Been a good team to watch.
I'll tell you, you know what else has been kind of a fun thing about this, and speaking about Ayton, the 2018 draft class has dominated this playoffs. Between everybody was like, how could you pass on Luka? Well, Ayton is not, don't get me wrong, he's not Luka, but when I was watching that game last night, it was like, if I had Devin Booker on my team, I don't know if I would necessarily want Luka on my team at the same time. If I already have Devin Booker.
It makes sense for them to take.
Absolutely.
No, you're 100. That's a great point. I didn't really think about it, but Ayton obviously, I think for the team he was on, I mean, this was high level scouting for them and making the right selection because you could have took a Doncic, you could have took a Trae Young. They obviously know and believe in Booker, and why shouldn't you? Devin Booker's as good as it gets. I would do crazy things to get him. I wanted him here for a lot of years. It's not going to happen because he's going to be with Phoenix for a long time. But you look at not only him. Obviously Luka and Trae Young, look, Mikal Bridges has turned into a really good player. I mean, this is another guy that it kind of annoys me, and this has been one of my issues with the Sixers for a long time. If you remember, Mikal Bridges is a Philly kid. He went to Villanova. His mother worked for the team, for God's sakes. They drafted him on draft night, traded him for Zaire Smith. And you know where Zaire Smith is now, Martin?
He's not in the NBA.
No, he's not in the NBA. And I know people will say, well, they do have Thibault, but look, not for nothing. I mean, Mikal Bridges, let me ask you, who are you taking, Thibault or Bridges? Because I'm taking Bridges. He's a better shooter. Bridges. He's a better offensive player. And he's just as good defensively. Yeah. But throw in the fact that you even look at guys that are not in the playoffs that have panned out. I mean, Jaren Jackson, with Memphis, he had a really good season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Miles Bridges, Kevin Huerter. I mean, he was at 19.
MPJ.
DiVincenzo. Sure. There's a lot of guys here that
there's a lot of guys in this draft.
Yeah, it was a good class overall, which, as you said, have kind of shined in the playoffs. But let's get into tonight's action. We thank everybody for checking out the show. If you enjoy what you're seeing, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. A lot of people check this out on the back end, so hope you're doing well. Thanks for checking us out if you are one of those people. If you're on the live chat and you want to talk, feel free to jump in and say hello. If you have a question or anything, you want to throw out a pick, feel free. We got 2 games tonight, one in the East, one in the West. We have a game 2 and we have a game 1 here. Let's get into it. Philadelphia 76ers laying 6.5 against the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I want to make a point, and I'm not going to count this on my picks. I am going to make it clear. I bet Philadelphia at 4.5. I bet it as soon as it came out on Sunday night. I'll be honest. I don't know if 4.5 or 6.5 make a whole lot of difference to me, which I know is crazy because every half point matters in the NBA. But I'm under the belief that the Philadelphia 76ers win this game by double digits. And if they don't, I have some real concerns. This is a prototypical Game 2 zigzag theory. And I know people say, what about the Bucks? Well, that's a different opponent. This is a prototypical zigzag kind of game. You look at what you saw in Game 1. I had the Hawks, okay? And listen, Martin, I actually had people on Twitter, and this is what makes Twitter wild. So people know I've rooted for the Sixers my whole life. I've made it very clear over the last 3 to 5 years, I don't like the current makeup of this team. I don't think they have what it takes to win a title, and I've always been negative about them. I always will root for them, but obviously I came up with the Allen Iverson teams and the teams that I really respected and that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily love the makeup of this team.
Those are some of my favorite teams, just as a quick aside, like the Allen Iverson teams. I used to love those teams growing up.
Sure. I don't think this team has what it takes to win a title, and I picked against them. And I had people contacting me, you're not a real fan. Listen, all due respect, as I get older, I don't give a flying hell about fandom. I don't. I like the Eagles. Okay, I go to Eagles games. I'm a big Eagle fan. But if the Eagles are in a spot that I can bet against them in, I'm going to do it. I don't care about fandom. I'm sorry. I'm in this.
Also, it's just. Well, my thing is just like this. Simply because, I mean, I've never understood the concept. If I bet against my team, I'm somehow not a fan of it.
It's stupid. It's not true. That's the point. It's dumb. It makes no sense. Listen, I think this is where, and it's a very simple thing, that when you're in the sports betting business, whether it's content or betting or whatever you do, you graduate from being someone that I think is somewhat respectable to someone that just isn't really that respectable. And the difference is when you're giving out information that you can't bet against your favorite team, like that's where I kind of get off the boat. Okay, I don't care about fandom. I don't care about whether I just want money on this game because I'm watching. I don't care about nachos and cheese with my friend. Like I don't care about that stuff. Can I make money on this game? That's the thought I have. Now, again,
I like that, the nachos and the cheese.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that they sit and watch games and have nachos. That's cool. Like, there's a lot of fans like that, and that's fine. But I think if you can differentiate that you're betting on this game because there's value, I thought the Hawks had a lot of value. Just being honest, I thought the public undervalued how good they were, and I think it's clear this is a very good basketball team. Now, when I look at this game tonight, I look back at the fourth quarter and I say to myself, how did that happen? Right? And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Hawks did what a lot of teams with big leads do. They let their foot off the gas. They're a young team for the most part. And I know everyone's going to give Nate McMillan credit, and I am. He's a great coach for this team. But I thought he made some bad decisions late. Having Gallinari inbounding to Bogdanovich and Bogdanovich inbounding to Gallinari, Lou Williams should have been in the game, as Trae Young was as well. You got to get the ball to those guys. You can't be so helter-skelter late in the game. So I think the final score was not necessarily indicative of the game, but I think it bodes well here. Joel Embiid was a big-time factor. I think it's clear that, in my surprise, he's a lot more healthy than it let on. Mm-hmm. I think Doc Rivers, and I know this because I live in this area and I watch the local stuff. I listen to 94 WIP. He has gotten destroyed in this town for his behavior the other night, putting Danny Green in the game, leaving Danny Green in the game to get just destroyed. But if you watch the second half, they did a better job against Trae Young. The Sixers gave up a lot of open looks. And what I've noticed with this group this year, after a bad defensive performance, they come out with a very good defensive performance the next game. And I think this series is going to be a war. I think the Hawks are very good, and I think they did what they had to do. I'm not looking at Game 2 as a throwaway game, because it's not. But I think this is a bona fide spot to play it with the Sixers. We see the line. It's moved from 4.5 to 6.5. And again, I'm not that worried about this, because I have this pegged as 119-106 Sixers. I think they do a better job on Young tonight. John Collins doesn't beat him as much as he did. I don't think Bogdanovich goes off for 21. No, I do think he has a pretty good game. I think over 3.5 threes is a pretty good look. I think we see better outcomes from Ben Simmons. Tobias Harris is more assertive offensively. We don't see as much of the bench, which was and I hate to keep going off on tangents here, but no offense to Doc Rivers, but 11 players should not be playing in the playoffs. Like, give me a break, Doc.
I feel like when you're down 26 points in the first half You're just trying to throw something at the wall to see if it's like to see what'll happen because it's still
Yeah,
the
but
first half. You know what? It's not the
yeah,
end
but
of the
it's still
game
the
yet.
first half, and you still have an opportunity. I mean, they were down 14, and he had the bench players in. Look, if you want to throw Maxey in there, fine. I'm fine with that. He's going to play. They got to have some bench in there. George Hill, even. I don't have a problem with that. But Dwight Howard, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But I don't need to see Dwight Howard for 15, 20. It's just he's not been good. I don't think he's a good matchup in this series. You can't have him in the game. I don't want to see Mike Scott. I don't want to see Furk and Korkmaz. Shake Milton's a good regular season player, but I don't want to see him in the game. Like, you just can't have those guys. Maxey, George Hill, and a little Dwight Howard. That's it. 8 players. That's it. I don't want to see any, and Thibault as well.
I'm about to say Thibault. I think Thibault has to run.
Oh, for sure. I forgot about him. So, 9 guys, I guess it would be, or 8 guys, whatever. I'm playing the Sixers. I took 4.5. I bet it when it came out. I'm also playing. I'll throw 6.5 out there as well. Again, we do the show at noon. It's what I can do. It is what it is. That's the gift and the curse of doing content. I only can do the show one time. But I played 4.5. I also am going to play 6.5. I think they win by double digits tonight.
I actually got 4.5 yesterday morning because
there are some 5.5s out there too. So
I get up before the sun, so I got it yesterday. But I yeah, Mike, please stop getting minutes. No, but I haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna shoot this for my video for today. I like the 76ers a lot today. Dude, that second half to me, it showed something to me, and it's just really about Doc. Is Doc going to make the changes in game 2 that I imagine 94 WIP callers have been complaining about for the last couple days now, right? Because I mean, Danny Green can't stay in front of Trae Young whatsoever, right? That's it. That's an understanded fact, right? That gravity
can happen tonight, and it won't because those people at that arena tonight. Listen, I knock the Sixer fans because they suck, this new age fan, but he'll get booed if that happens again. You can't do it.
I think you have to run a combination, and I think you saw more of it in the second half. When you run a combination of Thibault and Simmons,
correct,
and you have to show him different looks first of all. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Thibault get up off the bench early and play a lot of minutes, just in the idea of your job is to keep Trae Young out of the paint.
Yeah,
because once they get Trae Young into the paint, then you have Joel Embiid doing the dance of like, do I go to Trae? Do I stop the lob? Do I go to Trae? Do I stop the lob?
No, it's that's very astute. So true. And that's what I love about you because you always give those. I love schematics and how a player is going to, what he can do against a defense, whatever. They also have to stop going under screens. Stop going under screens, Sixers. Stop doing that. But that's what game 2s are for, Martin. Adjustments. You watch some tape yesterday, and you make those adjustments. And look, I want to give the Hawks credit. This is a great passing team, man. I really liked watching them. They were a fun, fresh team to watch, especially betting on them. It was fun. You're so right with that.
I think what you'll end up seeing here a lot in this game is you'll see he might start Danny Green on him for like the beginning, but you'll see Simmons taking him in high leverage moments when the starters are out. You'll see Simmons on Trae Young, but for the majority of the game, I'd be shocked if you didn't see Thibault on him for the most of the game. Like, this is going to be, Matisse, do your thing, bro. Just sit down.
This is
don't get me wrong, Trae Young will get off. Like, Trae Young will still, I'm not saying that Trae Young's going to have a bad game. Mm-hmm. It's just like Thibault is going to make him work a little bit more, knock him out the paint a little bit. Maybe those passes to Bogdanovich are just a little bit out of the shooting pocket. But what was happening in the first half, whenever game 1 was, cannot continue. Otherwise, this thing's over with. But I like the Sixers a lot, and I like them in this series.
Yeah, you know a prop I'm really starting to kind of key in on here, and I think I'm going to play it smaller. It's not a points prop here. I like Trae Young over 9.5 assists tonight. You look at his average. Is 9.4 assists a game. He had 10 the other night. I think he's going to have to kind of be he's not going to get shut down and score 7 points, but I think he's more of a distribute tonight. I think it's like a 22 and 11 type of night for Trae Young. I'm going to play that. I think Trae Young is a little bit more assertive tonight at getting the teammates involved. Clint Capella rolling to the rim, going downhill, getting the ball to Collins, Bogdanovich, kick out opportunities. I'm not going to say that he's going to be shut down offensively because at the end of the day, I don't think he can be guarded by a lot of these guys. I know the Sixers are really good defensively, and as you said, they're going to make it a point to kind of try to shut him down a little bit more. But I think what that bodes well into is the over 9.5 assists. As I said, this is an over, like he's a 9+ assist guy. That's his average. It's not like he averages 3 assists a game and he's only a scorer. But I think also the problem you have here with having to put so much into Trae Young, whether it's a double team or more focus, is other guys are going to be open. And I think a secret thing that we haven't really talked about in this series, because it's only been one game, we have to remember the other night, DeAndre Hunter didn't play in that game.
Yep.
And I know a lot
game
of people,
time today.
Yeah, and a lot of people, kind of just gloss over that. DeAndre Hunter's a starter on this team. Okay, he's a guy that I think if you get him back tonight, I really kind of worry about the Sixers offensively just because I think he's going to cut down on, if we saw it, I think it was the first play of the game, Ben Simmons just walked to the rim, basically. And if you can get him back tonight, that definitely helps. And I think more long-term in this series, when he comes back, that also really hurts the Sixers. If you think the Sixers are going to just cruise 4-1, I think you're lost. I don't think you're giving Atlanta enough credit. But tonight, I'm happy to lay the 6.5 here. I think the Sixers come back, make some adjustments, and at least for one game, it was clear Capella couldn't really guard Embiid. I mean, Embiid at one point was just moving and doing whatever he wanted down low. So I think this game continues to be a pretty good over kind of series. I don't know that either defense can stop each other. I think they both kind of bode well together. But I'm going to go with the Sixers. I'm going to lay the points here. As I said, I have the 4.5, but I'm going to lay 6.5 as well. And I'm going to play Trae Young over 9.5 assists. I think that's a good play.
The only thing that concerns me about the over 9.5 assists is because basically the way I have this in my head,
if it's a blowout,
is that no, not a blowout necessarily, but I just have them keeping Young out of the paint, right? And if they are I feel like that's going to be the focus. Like if Trae Young beats us shooting 45-foot 3-pointers, then shake his hand after the game, have a good one. You know what I'm saying? But the way that they just got completely just annihilated through that drop coverage, like one of the commenters had mentioned it already, but that's just boom, boom, boom. I wonder if he's going to get those 3 or 4 just easy lob assists that he kind of walks away with every day.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. Like, I just go back to the Knicks series, and I remember if you obviously watched them in the first 2 games, Trae Young destroyed the Knicks. What do you have? I think he had 30 plus in both games. Game 3, the Knicks came back and kind of shut him down offensively. But what happened was he had 14 assists in that game. I remember because I had over 25 points, I think, in the game. He had 14 assists. So I'm figuring that they just kind of get the ball out of his hands. He dictates it a little bit more. Maybe around the top of the key, the free throw line. He does what he does because he's a great passer. He's a great overall.
Yeah, and even if you're saying even if he's not getting those lobs, he'll still find a way to be productive.
Yeah, for sure. And look, 9.5 isn't too bad. If this were 12.5 or 11.5, I'm not as interested. But I'm willing to think he gets to that average. Just give me 10 assists tonight, and I think that's kind of the norm for Trae Young. So keep that in mind.
35 and like 35 and 10 last time out. So
yeah. Exactly. Is DeAndre Hunter playing? Nobody knows. It's going to be a game-time decision. And whether you want to speculate about whether he's going to play or not, I mean, I made it a point to say I didn't think Joel Embiid would play for 10 days or so. He played the next game. So I don't put a lot of stock into what coaches or beat people listen, the beat reporter is gone in sports betting now. Beat people suck, especially in the NBA. They don't know anything. You need those, like, college guys that are just hungry. I've always said I would be the best beat reporter in this country if I were a beat reporter. If any newspaper wants to give me a lot of money to be a beat reporter, I would do it because I would get.
I got news for you. They don't.
No, they don't, and they're not going to do it because they don't have any money. Beat people. Suck.
Nothing personal against you. It's just against the job.
No. Beat people are just really bad. Their sole goal is to cover teams, and they don't know anything more than anyone else. It's one of the biggest wastes of a profession on earth. Sixers -6 seems too high. I don't agree with that. I think the Sixers make a lot of adjustments here tonight. And Doc is a good enough coach to make those adjustments. So, yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, look,
the one thing
none
that
of
gets
us
me
said
about the
100%.
Six, I'm about to say the one thing that gets me about the 6, and I told you, like I got 4.5 yesterday morning, but I am going to give out 6. The Sixers missed 11 free throws yesterday, or whatever game 1 was. Yeah. Ben Simmons was 3 for 10 from the line.
Yeah, it killed them.
He missed 7 of the 11 team free throws. That's insane to me.
Yeah, but the problem they have is, and this is the problem with him. What else do you do?
You just live with it.
I will say though, in the last 3 minutes of a game, I know this is wild, but like I would take him out. Like I think he's that big a problem. Like teams aren't stupid, man. They're just gonna foul him. You know, and that hurts with like laying 6.5 here. But I'm just hoping that this is one of those like Washington type of games that they had where like they're just up by 15 and it doesn't get to that point. That's kind of what I'm hoping for here. All right, let's move on to the next game. We spent a lot of time on one game. We'll go to the Western Conference. We got game 1, Utah and the Clippers. Utah up to 4 at 105. So you're getting a nice juice price there if you're wanting to lay 4, if you think they're going to kind of do what Phoenix did last night. Total's 221. Not a great spot for the Clippers here. A day and a half later off of that game 7 win, which didn't have to expend a ton of energy. They kind of pulled away late and were able to kind of get out of there. But not easy. You got to travel. You got to go to elevation, which I don't want to. I just kind of mention that because it's something to mention, but it does not affect these games at this point. If you're a handicapper that actually tries to dictate a point and say that you think they're going to cover because the Jazz are in elevation, okay, first of all, the Clippers.
I would be much more concerned about the team being in Miami for, like, let's say they got there Saturday and the game was Monday, then that would be for the place being a mile high and in the above sea level.
Earth to bettors. Elevation doesn't matter in professional sports. Stop using it as a dictation to why you think a team's going to cover. It doesn't matter. Stop talking about it. These are people that have played basketball at the highest level for decades, a lot of them. And for most of them, it has been decades. Even the young players. They've played 3 games in 5 hours. They've all played AAU. They've all played in every corner of the country. Stop talking about elevation. It doesn't mean anything. How many times do you think a lot of these guys have played in elevation? A lot. It's not like you and me that have been to Denver once and are getting off a plane.
They also all play in Utah and Denver at least.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Look, if you had a team, let's say, I used a couple of years ago, it was the CBI tournament, which is one of those lower level
I know.
March. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Coastal Carolina had to go out to Wyoming and play. That's where elevation matters. Because if you look at Coastal Carolina's roster, most of those players are from North Carolina or nearby. None of them have ever been in elevation. That's a good elevation play. But professional players, no. And now Ryan C. will try to tell us how great the home court advantage is in Utah and that elevation matters a whole lot. Okay, it doesn't, though. Let's get into why and what matters in this game. There's a point here. Where is it? Somebody made a point about, there it is, Mike Conley. Yes, this is a big factor. And it's making me not play this game for that reason. I want the Utah Jazz at full strength. When they are at full strength, you can make the case that they are the best team in the NBA overall. They have the defensive prowess. They have everything you want offensively, and they are a wagon, okay? They're like Booker and Paul. You have Conley and Mitchell. I want Conley. I would love Conley in this town because he is a do-it-all guy. He can shoot everything you want. He's one of those underappreciated guys in the league, and it's one of the reasons he gets paid so much is because he's so important to a team. I don't know what his status is and I'm not going to fish and try to get info. If I can find some, I will probably play on Utah here, just because I think it's a tough spot off that game 7, having to play this game 1 so quickly. You're not going to be able to make total adjustments. You're not going to get to see as much as you want. I like Utah. I think their crowd's great. I will say that, and that's a good point. If you want to talk about Utah's crowd, I think it is a tough place to go play. I think everyone at this point is at full strength. Obviously, that might help a little bit here. I'd rather have 3.5 here, frankly. Let me ask you, what do you think about this game kind of on the surface?
On the surface, I look back at the last 2 series, right? Like, if you look how Utah did versus Memphis, and you look how Los Angeles did versus Dallas, obviously, neither one of Memphis wasn't a real competition for Utah. But when you look at games 3, 4, 5, and 3, 4, and 5 of that series against Memphis, they were just completely outclassing them, completely dominating them, where the Clippers just got out of a complete dogfight. And part of the thing that gets me concerned about the Clippers in that dogfight is, did you notice in the Mavericks series, outside of the Zubac switch for Batum, like any serious, basically for me, the Mavericks lost that series because Kristaps Porzingis just could not provide he could not be a second banana. Right.
And that's a great point. And that was something that I was going to ask you about, because when you look at Gobert, I think he's a tough matchup for the Clippers for sure. I mean, if you look at Marjanovic, say what you want about Boban, but he did a lot of good things in that series, and he's a competent, second big. When you go smaller, that's great, because I think you can kind of shut down those perimeter players and guys like that. But a true big under the basket, around the basket, like Gobert, I think it's going to be a problem for them. I look at Royce O'Neal. This is why you have players like Royce O'Neal. I think he can defend Kawhi Leonard. He's a tough defender. I give him a top 5 defensive grade in the NBA. He's that good. So I think there's some things that you've alluded to that I think from a Clipper standpoint, I'm a little worried about, where I think that going small, it worked against Dallas because no one else could really beat them. But Utah has so many guys, whether it's Clarkson, Mitchell, Conley, Gobert. But I need Conley in there, and I want them at full strength, because at full strength, this offense is a wagon.
And so that's my other point, right? Because the Mavericks, prior to really last season, and then at some points during this season, but the Mavericks were one of the best offenses just going, right? Because especially when those guys were hitting threes, they were unstoppable. Well, the Utah Jazz are 4th in the league in 3-point percentage, and I get that the Clippers are 1st, but Jeff, we've watched these teams all year, right? The Jazz offense, the way they move the ball and generate, I don't know what the second spectrum number is, but I would just have to imagine the Jazz generate more quality 3-point shots than any team in the league. Like more 3-point shots that come off of 1 or 2 passes, the ball rotation or something like that. Whereas the Clippers, when those shots weren't falling against Dallas, it's a lot of one-on-one, a lot of ISO ball, and they went and even got a point guard, Rondo, and he was stapled to the bench for the end of the series. So I like the Jazz in this series. I like the Jazz in this game as well. If they can continue to play that team level ball, because the Jazz have the same problem that Dallas has. They don't really have a number 2 guy offensively that's going to be really being able to dominate the ball when Donovan Mitchell gets his second foul in the second quarter, or when Donovan Mitchell is 0 for 7 from 3 to come out the game, to somebody to take the pressure off of him. But they can keep playing team ball, because I think Utah and Dallas are kind of similar in the idea that these guys are not necessarily, like Tim Hardaway Jr. is not a star, and the Bogdanovich over there is not a star, but when they're on, they're on. You know what I'm saying? I do think that the floor of Utah is way higher than Dallas. And Dallas, I know you said Game 7 didn't take a lot of energy for the Mavericks. That's what I'm saying. This comment just popped up and said they have better second options than Dallas. I agree. And that's why I think the Clippers might be in trouble tonight and for this series.
I mean, the Jazz, if we go back to the regular season, Jazz beat them 3 out of 4 games. The only game the Jazz lost was a back-to-back against the Clippers. Again, the only thing that keeps me off this game from really a team total. Look, the team total for the Jazz tonight is 112.5, I think. If you go back and look, the Jazz are right around that in every game that they played against the Clippers. But again, I need Conley. And that's for me where I'm going to watch this game, see what I find. Maybe a live betting opportunity if he plays, or I get some info later. Keep in mind, it's only 12:30 on the East Coast. Got a long way till this game goes. If I can get some good info that he's going to play, I'm going to look more towards a team total for the Jazz, just because I do think they win. It could be a close one, but I think the Jazz have a lot of offensive success here. I really do, because I think the Jazz are going to struggle against Gobert, and people are talking about Kawhi will stop Mitchell. You got to expend a lot of energy on defending and score. There's a lot there. They are a team that just played. Obviously, Jazz have been off for a good amount of time, which I think will help here towards the end of the game. And I feel like they get to 115 here. This offense is really good. You mentioned how good they are at creating opportunities. Clarkson's terrific off the bench. There's not a lot of teams that can go to a guy like Clarkson, right?
The thing about the Jazz, real quick too, they play two different styles almost, because they're big when the starters are in. They're big, move the ball, and then when Clarkson comes in, it's all right, buddy. It's your show, a la Lou Will a few years back. It's like you go and you do your thing, and then Mitchell sometimes will take the ball and do his thing as well. But that's the thing about the playoffs, Jeff. It's like baseball. You got your fastball. What's your breaking ball? What's your off-speed pitch? The Jazz have a couple off-speed pitches. Whereas, I think that's what happened to the first round. The Knicks had no curveball. The Mavericks had no curveball after Luka. The Knicks had no curveball after playing defense. So it's like I think the Jazz have a little curveball for the Clippers here.
Yeah, I do too, and I think I talked about this the other day. I think we continue to see with the team like the Jazz. We see it with the Suns. We see it with the Hawks. People as NBA fans are not ready to change the guard in the NBA, and they discount teams like the Jazz and the Hawks and the Suns. These are all really good basketball teams, okay? Nobody's giving the Jazz credit still, okay? This is a team that is high level, man. And when you look, but this is the problem, one problem that I, again, concern myself with. When you take a guy like Conley out, yes, you could play Clarkson. The problem that the Jazz have is, outside of Ingles and Clarkson, there's really no one I want on the court outside of the starting five. So there is 7-man rotation. If you take Conley out, it's just, I want everyone at full strength with them. And that's where I have issues, because I've talked about this as well. When you take Conley out, Royce O'Neal is a lot of the time a net negative offensively. He doesn't give you anything. There are times where Gobert has been a net negative because he has bad matchups. I think he'll be a good plus positive in this one, but I need Conley, and I want Conley, and I'm just not going to play this if I don't know what Conley's status is. So for me, officially right now, I'm not playing this game. But if I can get Conley in there, I'm going to look towards a spot. I might throw it out on Twitter or something. I want to throw a comment out here. Gerald, elevation does not matter. Please stop. This is the NBA, brother. This is the highest of the high. Nobody has issues with elevation. Maybe one player randomly will, but it's not an issue here. But I agree. This is a tougher spot in the playoffs. And I think probably in game 2, I'm going to look towards the Clippers here for sure. But if I had to play it, I'm leaning Jazz. I'll kind of update it later. Are you officially playing this game in any capacity?
I'm hard leaning on the Jazz right now, but the Clippers have handed me a lot of losses recently, so I'm gonna just let it go. I'm gonna watch this one. I watched Phoenix last night. And I had a good read on that. I was gonna watch this tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Again, don't have as big of opinion just because of no Mitchell possibly, but I'm definitely leaning that way, and I'll be watching it. Maybe we'll get involved with the live action here. All right, best bet time. I got 2. I'm going to play 2 in that Sixer game. I'm going to play the Sixers. I'm also going to go with Trae Young over 9.5 assists. I think both have a real opportunity to get the job done here, and I'll gladly take, 121, 108, Trae Young with 11 assists. Both will cash, kind of cover my bases a little bit. I will say this. There's an interesting prop on FanDuel. Okay, I want to talk about this quickly. Sixers to win by 11 or more, plus 175. Do you just go with that? Do we really think this is going to be like close but not that close win where they win by like 8 or 9? I guess it could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like
but
if you think the Sixers are going to win, don't you think it's going to be by double digits?
That's what I'm saying. I think it'll be by 10 though. Like I could easily see 10 because here's the deal. The Hawks can all shoot, and the Sixers, depending on what he does with Simmons, down the stretch, they might hack at Simmons and they might throw the possession off, and all of a sudden you're sitting on 9 instead of 11. You know what I'm saying? Like now all of a sudden you're sitting on the wrong number. You're sitting on a 9 instead of 12, and it's just like, oh, what the fuck?
Here's what I'll say, and I would implore Doc Rivers to do this. If the Sixers are up 7 to 8 or 9, take Ben out. Put Maxey in. Maxey can deal with it. You have a lead where it's good enough. Look, if the lead, I don't think the lead's going to get cut down to 3 with Maxey in the game. Like, you got to stop with that because I think it's starting to hurt you at certain points. Like, it hurt you the other night. If Ben Simmons goes 7 for 10 from the line instead of 3 for 10, they maybe win. That's the difference. In a game you played terrible in,
probably win.
Yeah. So, but I also don't know. Maybe if Atlanta doesn't take their foot off the gas and they have Hunter, they probably win by 15 or 20. So, it's a great series. I'm looking forward to it tonight. I think if you're a Sixer fan, this is the most important game from not only a from a series standpoint, but just from an overall response standpoint. Does the team respond? Does Joel Embiid respond? Does he keep playing the way he does? Does Doc Rivers make adjustments? This is a gigantic game for the future of this team, and I mean that. If they lose this game, this series is over, and the Sixers will fail again. It's that simple. This is the biggest game in a long time in this town. It's that simple. Probably as big as the Game 7 they had against the Raptors a couple of years ago. And we know how that game shook out. Remember?
Jeez.
This team has to win tonight. It's that simple. It's the most important game in a long time they've had. All right. My man, Martin Weiss, you're the best. Let us know where we can find you. Let good people know where to find you. How's everything with the odds couple?
Everything's going well. I'll be on the Odd Couple on Thursday doing Trolling or Rolling at, what is that, 5:30 Pacific, so 8:30 Eastern on Fox Sports Radio.
You are an early riser, and that's with Rob Parker. And
no, that's PM. That's PM.
Okay, at night. Who's on that show? Tell us.
That's with Rob Parker and Chris Broussard.
Yeah, I've always been a Broussard guy. I like Broussard. Always have.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I don't know a ton about Parker, but I like Broussard. When he was with ESPN, I was always a big fan of him. I like his delivery. He's kind of that smooth, guy. I gotta tell you, I love him. I think he's a better version of Stephen A. And I mean that. Stephen A. sucks. I hate Stephen A. A lot of people hate him, but I like Broussard. Catch Martin doing the thing on that. He's kind of the brains of that show. I'm gonna tell you that right now. You would agree. You're the producer, right?
No, actually, I just do guest spots on there, but I also do the Lemon Pepper Parlay podcast, which drops on Thursdays, and I'm gonna be doing some writing stuff too. So
this is what you need to do. Follow Martin Weiss is a good indication of if you want to get into sports betting, how you do it. He's doing it, offering compelling programming, involving yourself with people that have a platform, and organically going through it. I had a kid last night that reached out to me. Hey, how do I get into this business? I had him call me, and I told him what I would do. It's not easy to do this, but you are a fascinating portrait of how you create a buzz in sports betting. I mean that. I'm giving you props.
Thank you. Just never forget, content is king.
Yes, it is. Even if no one watches. When I first started doing this, nobody watched. Even coming to Picks-wise. I went from Barstool to another company and tried to organically create a content piece there, right?
Right.
It's hard to get an audience to follow you. If you can get one person to do it, it's crazy. So do what he's doing, do what I'm doing. put content out. Put your face out there. Put your name out there. All that's important. Let's wrap this thing up. Are you not liking Steph Curry over 14.5? I think it's high. I think it's high. I think he's always a guy that I'm liking. I just like the Trae Young assists a little bit more, but it's always a good bet. Go check out Martin Weiss on Twitter. Also, if I could throw one thing out before we go, please go check out my podcast, The Sit Down. If you enjoy Mafia history, Mafia stuff, mob movies, the Goodfellas, all that stuff, Whitey Bulger, we try to offer compelling storytelling portraits of the American mob, different crime groups. We're going to do Cuban American gangsters. We're going to talk about Irish, Albanian, Russians. We've got all sorts of Irish. We've got all sorts of stuff to float your boat. We've got so many shows to still do. We've got a big show coming out tomorrow on Carmine the Snake Persico, one of the most interesting snake figures in the history of the mob. Spent most of his time as boss in jail, but he still was able to run the family. So check that out. Go follow it on Twitter at the Sit Down 7. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. We are gaining a ton of steam. I'm so proud of this thing that I'm working on. I've really tried to blow it up, and it's getting there. So go check it out. Martin Weiss, you're the best. Thank you for checking us out. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
My guy.
Thanks, brother. Everyone have a good night. Good luck. We are both on the Sixers. I also like Trae Young over 9.5 assists. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Every day here on the Hoops Betting Hour, live 12 Eastern here on Pixelwise, presented by FanDuel. Have a good night. Bye-bye.